And we're on for week 3 of fantasy football preview. And if I check on the bottom here, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're all present and accounted for. We're all back. Look at this. Welcome back to the show, Seth, Hollywood Hope.
Oh, thanks. I thought Max missed last week. I'm pretty sure it was Max. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Check the
Nobody's in that bottom right-hand corner. Nobody remembers me.
Oh, man. Well, it was a rough week of fantasy for some of us, more so the guys on the field that got injured. Lots of that to talk about. But so I guess to start with some headlines real quick. Last week we obviously talked about Ray Rice and that situation and how that was playing out. Now we have another name to add to the fold. Adrian Peterson is probably at this point done for the year.
Really?
Which is crazy to think about. I mean, he's on that, commissioner's exemption list until his legal process plays out, and that's not going to happen for a couple months. So that's not going to wrap itself up until well past the end of the season. So Vikings, that's a lost cause now. And then the other thing to talk about with headlines here is not so much a fantasy impact guy, but Greg Hardy is also done probably for a little while. He's on that same list that Peterson got put on. So, guys, I don't know if there's any fantasy guys left. Who's next, I guess, is the question.
Oh, we can't. That's a poor taste to speculate on that.
I know, isn't it? But that's what it seems like. It's just high-profile guy after high-profile guy. What's your take on everything that's gone down, be it related to fantasy or not? So this is open-air talk time.
It's pretty bad. I think that's my hot take. It's kind of funny. Like, the bar to being like an acceptable human being as far as playing in the NFL is so low. You get like 2 DUIs, no problem. Like, the one thing you can't do is brutally beat your son. You can't throw your wife onto a pile of machine guns.
Yeah.
It's not like people are asking for much.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so
They
true.
can't seem to do that.
People are like, these people aren't role models. The athletes aren't role models. Blah blah blah. Like this, Mark is absolutely right. The standard is low. It's not too much to ask to be a decent human being. I mean, they're not asking them to volunteer their time. It's not a requirement to start a charity. Just be a decent human being. That's all you need to do.
Not even that. Just don't be a very bad human being.
Don't be a horrible person. Yeah.
Don't commit an outlandish crime.
Right.
That's the thing. You act like these stars though are going around just willy-nilly beating anybody's kids or just punching girls just for the fun of it. I mean, at least in Ray Rice's case, I mean, there's only been one time that he has shown to do this act. Was it a terrible thing? Yes. But I mean, he has a foundation that will, because his cousin was involved in like a DUI related incident where he actually lost his life. Like, he vowed to never drink. He vowed to start this organization, used his publicity for good, set up something where he will actually get you a cab. You call this company and they will get you a cab to take you home instead of driving drunk. So I mean, like, you say these people are terrible human beings. Are they? Are they really that? I mean, they did a terrible act that defines you as a whole character.
I sort of I went down this road a little bit last week. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it on here. The big problem with all of this stuff, everything that's coming out, is a lot of it is the NFL's fault. Yes, those people, Ray Rice, Adrian Peterson, Greg Hardy, they did these things and inexcusable. Their punishment should have been handled way better. The ways these situations were handled really blew this up even more so than it should have been. Not to say that these things should have been like kept low key and handled that sort of way, but the fact that not one of these situations was handled right from the beginning really is not. It's really screwing these guys of getting a second chance, whether they're first-time offenders or whatever the situation is. Whether in Peterson's case he legitimately thinks he did his son well by whipping the crap out of him. They don't have. With the way that they were suspended and then unsuspended, or their sentence was really low and then it made indefinite, just the way the league has fumbled this, it literally is like just it's ruined any chance of them being able to salvage their public life, their careers in some cases. I don't know that Peterson might. That's got to play itself out. We'll see how that goes, but maybe it's not. Ray Rice is done in the NFL.
I disagree with you. I think that in this moment right now, it appears like the league is on fire and nothing will ever put it out. And that's how it seems. I mean, these are big stories and they deserve to be big stories. And if you go back and rewind, you probably would have said the same thing when Michael Vick got arrested for dogfighting and went to jail, and you thought he's done forever. He's never going to play again. But people do believe in second chances. People do like second chances. I'm one of those people. I think that people should. There should be a punishment, and punishment is designed, especially prison. In the case of Michael Vick, prison is designed to rehabilitate. So you pay your debt to society, you receive the punishment, and then you get the second chance. I think they should get a second chance at some point down the line, not anytime soon. But I think there is a good possibility that Ray Rice gets a second chance in the NFL, just not anytime soon.
I would hope so. I'm with you there. I'm someone that is, a supporter of the team that gave one of the Michael Vick a second chance. And to see that kind of story is awesome. And you root for those people when, they've corrected themselves and all that good stuff. But the only way I think that happens, and the only way this fire gets put out, is if there's a change at the top. And the only thing that's going to force that, and the reason why this is such a big story now, and I don't think it's done. It's going to go to another level, and that level is going to be, you're already starting to see it. Sponsors are backing out.
Mm-hmm. I have two things to say about this. Going back to what you were talking about, worrying about the players getting a second chance. I guess my argument would be, who cares? It's kind of regurgitating an argument a lot of people have made, but the job they have is mostly a privilege. It's not like a God-given right. Like, they're under no obligation to wait for due process to play out or anything like that. They're in the millionaires club playing like an adult game, essentially.
Yeah.
They have no right to ever come back. They don't. Mm-hmm. That's not required.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but the other thing that's interesting is they learn nothing.
No.
That's the shortest possible time elapsed between the first crime, and the second crime. It was literally 2 days later. And they made the exact same mistake a second time.
NFL learn nothing?
Yes.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson learned a valuable lesson, but I see what you're saying.
But reactivate them and then reinstate them 2 days, after the weekend, after your team gets
completely oblivious to the PR nightmare that would be, and that's just their MO now is.
Yeah.
I know that's how they operate, but I wish they would humor us a little bit. They make cold-hearted, self-serving decisions, and I don't really fault them for it because it's their business model. But then they go on and say they try to say with a straight face, we're gonna let this play out. We're gonna see where this goes.
Mm-hmm.
Might not be that bad.
Yep.
That's a Goodell. That's why everyone hates Goodell, because he just said that's everything that comes out of his mouth is that. It's just.
Here's something I'd like to add too. Do you guys remember with the I think it was the guy, the LA Clippers manager? What was his name? Donald Sterling. How everyone was all up in arms about his racist antics, and then I think Bomani Jones said, Bomani said, "Listen, why are we upset about this now? This has been happening for like 5 years." Well, the league has had domestic violence issues for a long time. Why are we just now, because it's Adrian Peterson and Ray Rice, fantasy skill players, do we care about it? I remember back whenever I was in college, which was 5-6 years ago, hearing about James Harrison, who is a big man, beating the living crap out of his girlfriend or wife, and I think he didn't even get a suspension, or he had to meet with the commissioner. I mean, it seems like 20 years ago this should have been changed, not now.
Sure.
So
right.
That makes me more mad than anything. And if they would have taken care of it 20 years ago and they said, listen, you put your hands on a woman, you're out for 6 games. You do it again, you're out for life. Would we have these Ray Rices now or James Harrisons now? So I don't understand why it took them so long to get tough. That's what I'd like to know.
That's why everyone hates Goodell, though, because
I hate to think that it's this, but it's the fact that it was caught on video.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no,
Plain and simple.
it's two things. It's that they're super high-profile athletes in the league, and two,
you
there's
can
video.
actually win.
So no, 3, social media. We never had that.
Oh, that's true, and
Yeah.
social.
No,
media.
the wildfire that is Twitter and Facebook. You know.
There was
So-
always outcry about it, but it was just there was no way for voices to be heard.
I guess so.
There was always outcry.
Right.
People think that outcry is new because of Twitter and Facebook. Outcry was there.
Always.
There was no way for the voices to be heard.
Right.
I will say, without the Rice scandal, say that never happened. I don't even think Peterson gets suspended.
No,
Yeah, probably not. Absolutely.
The timing of it is really weird, but I
He deserves to, but the way they've operated, he might get like a game or something.
yeah
It's so. It goes to show
And
you.
actually, the league hasn't done anything yet.
no.
Technically.
It goes to show you how little we really know about the personal lives of these athletes. Guys with sterling reputations, like Adrian Peterson. You thought he was the stand-up guy, the greatest guy in the league, and you had no idea he had 7 kids with 4 women, and he was beating a 4-year-old. You had no idea, and then you see these text messages and pictures and the investigations.
This takes it a completely different way. Based on going off of that, it takes it a different way. You see these guys that seem to come out of college with sterling records, and then you see someone like Jameis Winston now, who is just having issue after issue after issue, not learning his lesson in college. What's that spell for his future?
Yep.
And like you said, hey, let's try to predict who's next. You can't really predict it because, who would have ever thought Adrian Peterson would have been this guy?
It really could be.
Right.
But
Adam Pac-Man Jones, yeah, I could see him doing something ridiculous like this. But Adrian Peterson,
I know.
Right. Yeah. It's like Johnny Football is now the star, the person to live your life after now.
Yeah.
Of the league.
Crazy stuff. Enough.
Just gambles and does cocaine. Nothing more.
Enough arrests and suspensions, though. How about some actual injuries,
Yes.
guys that are out for other reasons? So, really quick, last week was a horrible week to be an NFL player, especially skill position players. So, just to run down a quick list of names that I wrote up and some potential substitutions. Stop me if you think of anything else. Number 1, Noshawn Moreno went down. Has hand, forearm, not somewhere.
Dislocated elbow. That sounded gross.
Elbow might be broken.
Might be broken. Well,
Yeah.
okay. So he's not going to be back for a while.
Yeah.
Names to look at, if not that you should have to go to backups of the Dolphins. If that's what you're doing, you're really in trouble. Maybe Mark, you might be doing that. Lamar Miller.
Joke's on you. Lamar Miller was already picked up.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
Lamar Miller. And then also the Dolphins just re-signed this week Daniel Thomas, who was on their team for 3 years, and they cut him earlier in the preseason. He's back. They're going up against Kansas City, who ironically also lost Jamal Charles last week. High ankle sprain, I think, was the call there.
Yeah, it wasn't that severe.
Sort of.
Not that severe, but it's potentially going to keep him. It's likely going to keep him out this week. So I went and looked on their report, and Andy Reid went ahead and confirmed that literally Niles Davis, Cyrus Gray, Joe McKnight, and DeAnthony Thomas are all going to split carries in the backfield in place of Jamal Charles.
I don't believe
So,
that. That's Belichickian. It's going to be Davis.
A boy band basically in their backfield for this upcoming week.
People should pick him up. Right?
Right?
Right? Unless he's already owned, Mark.
I tried to draft him.
Breeze for
Dumpster
Davis.
diving,
straight
Mark?
up.
Oh, man. In Washington, RG3 and Deshaun Jackson both got hurt. RG3, they're not going to say it yet. He didn't suffer a fracture to that dislocated ankle, which is really strange because that usually when one happens, the other happens as well. I'm going to say he's done for the year.
Yeah.
Yep, I would say so.
Deshaun Jackson, shoulder injury, not severe, and the Eagles are on Sunday, so he's going to play. In Cincinnati, A.J. Green, foot situation that's sort of been lingering for a while. Marvin Lewis said he's expected to start, but just in case, there's a guy named Mohamed Sanu on their depth chart who would rise up a little higher. Even if Green does play and isn't really active in the game, we also found out last week he can sling the ball downfield pretty well.
Oh, he's been doing
nice.
that a lot.
Yeah,
He runs that as
sort of
much as
forget
like
about that.
Antoine Randall used to.
You forget about that, and then they pull it out like twice a year, and it shocks you. It gets his name, and then you'll see his ownage percentage jump up a little bit this week. And then tight ends, Vernon Davis, who I have questionable with a high ankle sprain, and Mercedes Lewis is out in Jacksonville.
Yep.
So, that's a brief summary of some big names that are injured
Ingram,
this week.
Ingram
Mark
Matthews.
Ingram, yes.
Both those guys out 3 to 4 weeks. And Ingram surprisingly was having a sneaky good year on my bench
He was.
out of all places. But I think he put up 18, 16 points. So
He had a good year last year too.
Yeah.
I liked him a lot, and of course he got hurt.
yeah.
Of course.
Yep.
But so that runs us through injuries. Now to our brand new segment introduced last week that Seth, you'll like this, I think.
He knows about it. He watched it. He watched last week.
So you saw
Yeah.
a little right and wrong. What did you do well? What didn't you do well? You want to hop on this, first timer?
Sure. We say both at one time, or we go through right first,
wrong.
wrong.
What'd you do right and what'd you do wrong?
If you won, then you pretty much could say what went right. If you lost, say what went wrong.
Well, okay. End of the first game, so we're at like 4 o'clock, and I'm sitting there looking.
What was the matchup?
It was a matchup. It was my team versus another. I'm not gonna say who it was, but it's another panelist. So,
I wonder.
I'm down by like 32, 35, 7 points, somewhere around there, and I have Jay Cutler and a flex spot left. Bobby Rainey, I could start him, or I could go with Reggie Wayne. Well, they're playing the Eagles, and of course they're going to throw a lot and put a lot of points up, and I need to make up a lot of points. I can't put a backup running back on, so I left Wayne in there, and Cutler, he delivered and brought me within 7. And all I needed was Reggie Wayne.
Who you badmouthed before he even started?
I did. I said I had no doubts whatsoever Wayne was going to get me the points. I was like, I just don't know if Cutler can deliver.
10-yard reception for a touchdown, and that's all it was.
If you watched the first half of the game, you would have agreed with me. Cutler was terrible.
No, he's always sneaky.
And it wasn't until Brandon Marshall made that ridiculous freaking catch that he did anything. But so that went wrong. That went horribly wrong. I think if you look at my bench, I had like 3 players or 4 players I could have started that had like 40 points, 22 points, 16, 18. So I don't know. That went wrong for me, but it was nice. It was fun, and it made football exciting throughout the whole weekend, which is a reason I love fantasy football. Even down to the very last minute, where I'm like, okay, they could actually go into overtime, and then Reggie Wayne could get me the 4 points I need. So.
Oh man, good stuff.
Exciting times.
So I guess Max, what went right for you?
What went right? What went right was that my number 1 draft pick finally panned out. It's been years since I've had a first-round draft pick pan out.
Don't even go with that. Go with the fact that you didn't start the leading rusher for week 1.
You
did not start him. Why? Why wouldn't you?
I can tell you why.
Okay.
I don't think of ESPN's projections as the Bible, but I do take them into consideration.
Yeah.
And they did not like Knowshon Moreno in week 2. And I had in place Chris Johnson had a monster game, and he was going up against Green Bay, who has a terrible run defense. So I started him. And DeMarco Murray.
Chris Ivory.
He's my.
No. Who do you have?
Sean Green.
Sean Green? Really? Over Knowshon Moreno, the leading rusher in week 1.
Even if I would have
26 points, Max.
Even if I would have started Moreno over Sean Green, I still would have won. It just would have been my 1 point.
It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered.
Jimmy Graham came alive, even in the loss to Cleveland. 26 points, just a monster game. I don't have the stats in front of me. 10 passes, 118 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He went off. And also DeMarco Murray. He ran like crazy.
Looked good.
Yeah.
He looked ridiculously good.
I hate to give props to Dallas, but look what happens when you put the ball in his hands 20 times.
Yes.
That's what can happen.
He's gonna get hurt, so that's the
Yeah.
downside.
Who gets hurt first? Or well, actually, Romo might get pulled before he gets hurt.
Who's they gonna
I
start?
seriously think that's possible.
What,
Who's
they
they
just
gonna
bench
start
out
in
there?
Romo's
Or
place?
Whedon?
Why would you pull him?
Brandon
He's
Whedon?
shaky out there. I think there's still that lingering back injury. Those back injuries are nothing to mess with.
They don't go away easy.
No.
You know what? Brandon Whedon is not the answer to any question. Unless the question is, what's not the answer?
No, I would love to see that mess. I'd love to see that train come to town. Oh man.
So that's really low right. Now the problem I have is depth. I'm lacking some depth here, but
That's part of the problem with the 12-team league. Not that it's bad. That makes us work harder. I think it makes it more fun to do that diving onto the waiver wire and try to find guys and make the right adjustments and fit your team with the right pieces to do well. But it makes it difficult to have some depth on your squad.
Here's a question for you guys. I propose this. See what you think. Percy Harvin and Mark Ingram for DeMarco Murray.
this is before the injury.
Yeah.
He made this trip.
Oh no,
What do you think?
that's a definite no.
No.
I was ready to do it.
Wow.
Wow.
That's
I was
tough.
ready to do it.
Didn't you offer me DeMarco Murray and Jimmy Graham for Jamal Charles on draft night? I remember having that conversation.
Oh.
No. It wasn't DeMarco Murray.
Yeah, it was.
Oh yeah, because you wouldn't take Chris.
Thinking, Mark.
He didn't offer it,
No, I didn't offer it. We were just talking
ready?
back and forth, and I threw it out there.
and I didn't want to push too hard.
Mark, what went right for you this week?
Okay, what went right?
Well,
This is easy.
actually, you got dominated, didn't you?
What went
Not
right?
to keep- not to
Let me
keep throwing
finish.
things at you, but
I'll do the post-mortem myself. Thank you very much.
The low score in the league.
What went right? What went right? Nothing. What went wrong?
42 points.
I failed completely. And I hope in some way that my failure is amusing to the people watching because I offer no value in terms of analysis or
I
general
almost
knowledge of the game of football.
I almost think we should impose some sort of threshold. Like if you don't score over this many points, you can't show up on the show next week.
I love those kind of rules. I love it.
Well, I'm the commissioner of the
Something
league.
happened. Something magical happened that I've never seen happen in Mark's game on Mark's team. His kicker scored no points. I've never seen that happen. I've never seen that happen.
And the team was named after him.
The team is named after the
What
kicker.
happened? You changed your team name this week to the real Blair Walsh Project, and nothing. Got nothing.
0
I
points.
even called out the old Blair Walsh Project and got ignored entirely.
Mark, that team is not a Mark Garlett's team. That's the problem. I told you since day one draft day. That's
No,
not a Mark
it is.
Garlett's
If
team.
you look closely, it is.
The
Take Joy Bell on it is a Mark Arlett's team. But,
Joe Bell as your number 2 back.
no, he's good. He's my number 1 now.
The hilarious irony is that Mark's brother is in our league and knows nothing about football and follows nothing, and his team is throwing up monster numbers every week.
It's in the blood.
It's in the-
So, I guess as the high scorer in this week, a lot went right for me.
Golf clap. Golf clap.
Golf clap.
And let me tell you what that
And-
wins you in our league for being high scorer.
What?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, no,
Who
we don't
cares?
have like $5 side bets every week for high scorers. So high
Not-
scorer in week 3 doesn't get $5. So what went right? The Patriots' defense went incredibly right. They went off on Minnesota, 31 points. They were in the top 5 in scoring for the week. And also, of the, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 slots, I had 8 double-digit scorers. The only one that didn't was Vernon Davis, who went out with that ankle injury. And, yeah, I mean, Peyton Manning, Arian Foster, Frank Gore, Edelman, Macklin, just running down my starters real quick, Decker, the Pats, and Cody Parquet. I love Cody Parquet. That game winner was fun to watch. So, yeah, I mean, everything went right there. Everything went according to plan, how it should, I'd imagine, every week. Not 31 points from the Patriots every week, but, you know, them doing well. They were expected to be a good defense, got sort of embarrassed a little against Miami. But, yeah, so what went wrong, I can't say much, but the one thing that did go wrong was I'm not really going to blame myself for this because if you go based on this player's history, he is sort of up and down week to week. You know, he puts up double digits one week and then throws up nothing the next week. Darren Sproles is actually proving to be a legitimate commodity for the Eagles. Everyone thought he was going to be. You know, you 1-2 punch with McCoy, you throw them both out there at the same time. But there was also questions, you know, about what kind of how many touches he was going to get a game, if he was actually going to be able to, you know, carry some sort of workload and be productive. 25 points last week against an Indianapolis Colts team. That, you know, that's pretty sound. And to have put up double digits in the last 2 weeks, I'm starting to, you know, get a little faith in Sproles and whether he's in a flex spot or if he can unseat Gordon or Foster up in one of my starting running back spots. We'll see. But I'm loving that I have him on my roster, that I used a late round pick on him. But yeah, it was the only thing wrong was that he wasn't in my starting lineup this week.
Indiana, the Colts need to learn to tackle.
Yeah,
that was bad.
It was brutal. It's bad when like bad.
I think I could tackle Sproles. I outweigh him by like 40 pounds. Maybe if I like bumped into him, he'd fall over.
That's the thing. I've watched a lot of the games and I've seen him play, and I'm still shocked at how quick he is. He doesn't have the best top speed.
Short steps too.
Yeah, but I mean, to go from 0 to 10 yards, I mean, he was getting like little dump passes, and then the next thing I know, he'd have a first down, and I was just like blown away.
Yeah, do you know? I don't know if anyone looked at the stats, but take a guess at his total receiving yards in that game.
156.
Yeah, you looked.
I guessed.
Oh, it was
Let me
like
have
157.
See, it was a guess. It was a good guess, but it's a guess.
Nice job. All right. Well, I think that brings us to MVPs of last week. I think there's a few. I'll start, and just because he was on my bench, I'm going to say it. It was, to me, Sproles. He was beyond just fantasy, putting up 25 points. He legitimately was a game changer. I mean, if he didn't come to play, the Eagles probably are sitting home 1-1 right now. So you could say the Pats' defense too would be a little different in terms of fantasy. They were pretty stout this week. But how about for you guys?
Yeah, I'm going to take credit for this, even though he wasn't necessarily on my team, because after the draft, I went through and just kind of looked at who was still available, and I had a Derek moment, like I was ready to run all the way to Mark's house and say, hey, could you actually pick up this Ferguson for me? But Antonio Gates was not drafted in our league. And
wow. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I turned to Archie, and he had Colby Fleener, and I said, dude, I was like, you go and pick up Antonio Gates right now, or I'm going to. And I have Gronkowski, so I didn't really need it. And I said, you got to pick him up. I was like, even if he does, and he like did his research, and he said, oh, this Ladarius Green guy, he's supposed to. I said, just pick up both of them. I was like, whoever it's going to be is going to put up monster points. And this week, Gates was healthy. He put him in, and he ended up scoring 3 touchdowns, and he looked like the Antonio Gates of old. I mean, slow, chubby, kind of a miracle that he ever gets open, but then gets open and like gets one-handed catches, and so he was an MVP definitely this week and helped Arch destroy Mark.
I put the second claim in for Gates. I lost out to Archie in terms of order.
No way.
Yep.
Crazy. Who was your MVP this week, Mark?
Delaney Walker. For the same reasons as the Gates was, but he was owned by less teams. So teams that put him in to start blew things up.
Yeah. Max?
Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham had a monster game, and he's finally panning out. After a disappointing week 1, he's coming alive in week 2. I hope he matches that kind of production going forward.
I'd like to mention, I don't think I said this a few minutes ago, but you guys, there was just 3 tight ends mentioned. All 3 of those tight ends were in the top 6 of scoring. So we had 3 tight ends that put up the top 6 points. That took 3 spots in the top 6 points for week 2, which is incredible if you ask me. Guys are definitely turned. I mean, you can call them tight ends, but a lot of them, you know, Jimmy Graham definitely had a case in saying he was a wide receiver. So,
even for even for like a runner-up, did you see the Paul from Washington?
Niles Paul, I put in a claim on him this week, and I forget who I lost out to.
To the worst team in the league. That's what you lost out to.
You?
He looked good. And if there's any, if their starting tight end is out for any time, I mean, he could do some damage. He just looked like every time he caught the ball, I thought, okay, Garcon got another catch. But no, I mean, he was a tight end.
Mm-hmm. So. Oh, another person to mention, Brandon Marshall, having going from almost not playing, a game time decision, to just looking awesome out there.
Yeah.
Yep.
He single-handedly beat me in my other league, so that was tough. But it was an impressive showing by him.
It was a good game. That was an awesome game.
Awesome game.
All right, looking ahead to this week, who's primed to be an MVP this week? Who's taking it?
Andrew Luck.
He's
Let's do this
angry.
every week. He's mad. You saw him at the post-game press
He's
conference.
not happy. I have him. I had him down, so I have
He's
a
got a-
backup.
And he's playing, according to my calculations, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Nice.
Who are
Yeah.
an inferior squad to last year, that's for sure.
Yep. And when Andrew Luck is mad, I also would say to start any wide receivers. So Seth, you might be ready to quit on Reggie Wayne, but I'd start him next week, and I'm going to start T.Y. Hilton.
Good move. Yeah, I had Luck, and I'm going to go back. One stat that was mentioned on Monday was, everyone going into the game, why the Colts were favored, other than just the fact that they're the Colts, is that Luck doesn't lose back-to-back games. The last time he did was in college, and irony about that is that the quarterback that beat him in the second game was Nick Foles. Just funny stuff there, but coincidence. But I can't. There is no 3-game losing streaks for Andrew Luck. That just doesn't happen. That's not something to really hang your hat on and say why he's primed for an MVP sort of week. Going up against the Jags and all that good stuff, and just that huge chip that's on his shoulder. Again, it's the Jags. But someone else, and I'm gonna puff out my team's chest a little bit here again. Sproles, who is going to be in my starting lineup this week. I know.
Who's getting
I know. Homer,
replaced?
who's going to be a homer here? But legitimately, don't get fooled by the ranking right now for the Redskins defense. It says they're number 2 against running backs right now. That's because they went up against Toby Gerhart and the Jacksonville Jaguars last week.
Devil's advocate. Maybe Gerhardt's really good, and they did a good job of shutting him
Yeah,
down.
maybe. Never know. Yeah, Gerhart is a beast, let me tell you. But this is the defense that gave up the most rushing touchdowns over the last year for sure. Over the last couple of years, they're up there as well. But they gave up 23 rushing touchdowns. They're not a good defense against the run. And having to deal with both McCoy and Sproles they're not. It's not going to be pretty in Philly. So I say Sproles is definitely primed. McCoy could be finally primed to get back on track as well. So Philly running backs are the MVP looking forward this week.
MVP of this coming week and a matchup I'm looking forward to. But the MVP will be all of the Houston Texans, because they play the New York Giants, and I was and continue to be absolutely right about the New York Giants. They are putrid. They lost to a second-string quarterback who hadn't started a game in
4 years.
4
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. To a West Coast team traveling to the East Coast for a 1 o'clock game at home. The Giants are terrible. Don't
Who'd they
start
lose
anyone
to?
for the Giants.
Who'd they
The
lose?
Cardinals.
Arizona.
I watched a lot of that game, and I feel bad for Eli because he looked pretty good.
Yeah, that's the thing. I called this a sort of a mini trap game in a sense on my picks this week. I know it's weird. Something in my gut
After
was
I called
telling
it a
me.
huge trap game.
I know after you did last week, but this one coming up for some reason they jumped out. Don't forget, it's the Giants. They're going to find a way to throw the game away, and I did pick them to lose. But don't forget that they were up big on the Cardinals, and they just let them come back.
They really should have won that game.
They
and
should have.
They
They
got
definitely
killed
should
by
have.
That Jennings fumble murdered them, and that
Yeah.
punt return.
You're talking about
That's
you're
not
talking about the
like an
Jets?
overmatch.
The Giants.
Giants.
That's not like an
Interchangeable.
overmatch losing.
Both were
Yeah.
up big, and both teams lost. Interchangeable.
New York, man, put that whole city on put all their
All
football
right,
fans.
well, I'm going to do this again. Same deal. I'm not taking Fitzpatrick on the road. I think the Giants win that game.
No way. The Giants are bad, and they should feel bad. Everything about them.
The difference in that game, I think, comes down to the defense. You got the Texans' defense is playing out of their mind right now, and they're going up against the Giants' offense that, while they did put up points last week against a pretty decent defense in Arizona, they're still, they're not on the same page at all.
Yeah,
But
and
the problem
again,
is, Houston hasn't played anybody yet. They played
true.
Washington and Oakland,
That's true.
and
But
their stock is high because they crushed Oakland, and Oakland sucks.
That's
Yeah.
true, but again, look who they just lost to—a backup quarterback who hadn't played a game in a long time, and a West Coast team, like you said, coming to the East Coast for a 1 o'clock game to the Giants at home. That's bad.
But it was more of a fluky loss, and I don't think that they get murdered by drops.
Yeah.
Cruz dropped like a wide open 25-yard completion.
He dropped a lot.
Next play they punt, return for a touchdown. They drive down. They look like they're about to score the go-ahead touchdown. Fumble,
Yeah,
untouched fumble.
because they're not very good. So it happens when you're not to teams that aren't very good.
Arizona is really good, though.
I think so too.
I'm surprised. I think they're better than the 49ers. They're essentially the same team, but they're better.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I agree. I think Carson. I bet if Carson Palmer plays again, plays sometime soon, I bet he has a better season than Kaepernick.
I wish they had a real quarterback. That's the only downside.
I know, it's tough. It's tough to watch that. And
Palmer?
Yeah,
Palmer had a
he's
good year last year. He had a
a
good
second-tier
last
QB.
year.
And it kills me so much because I was one of the few people that didn't turn on Bruce Arians when he was in Pittsburgh, and it just breaks my heart because he is such a good coach, and he's so much better than anything else in Pittsburgh right now.
Yeah. Well, what are you gonna do?
Doing well in retirement too. I wish I could do so well.
Seth, did you give an MVP for next week?
I didn't, but just it's kind of tying to look into the matchups. Look for Megatron to have a really big rebound this week. I think they're at home against Green Bay, divisional game, coming off a big kind of disappointing showing in Carolina, I believe. And you're just not going to hold him down, so he's going to have a really big game. I'd also like to mention just for MVP, actually, this is going back to the last segment, but Ahmad Bradshaw, who, if anyone was watching the game, he had like 2 or 3 touchdowns passing, was really involved. He looked like the better back. I mean, Richardson's had some nice carries, but he just looked like the overall better back. And whenever you have a old running back from another team with injury issues, that just shows that Trent Richardson probably isn't that good. But I think he's only owned in about 50% of the leagues, so that'd be definitely someone I don't think it was a fluke that he got all those touchdown passes. I think last year Ahmad Bradshaw was injured, so he really couldn't show what he has, but they like him, and they're using him a lot, so definitely someone to pick up.
One point I want to make on your Detroit and Green Bay spiel there. Something to think about. Megatron definitely has the ability to put up big points, and they are back home, so I do like them there. One thing that you should keep in mind, since 2005, the Detroit Lions have beaten the Green Bay Packers a grand total of 2 times.
But now they have Jim Caldwell.
Yeah, game changer.
Mr. Personality.
He plans on just staring them to death. That's his whole defensive strategy. And not blinking.
If you bring that back further, since 2000, I think it was, they've only beaten them 5 times. All of those times, however, have come in Detroit, so there's that to think about, but 5 times in 14 years.
They don't have to win. They just have to be competitive.
Yeah.
They just have to put a lot of points up. That's all I'm here to decide.
That's maybe a point, that they'll be down and they'll be slinging the ball, so you do want to start Megatron.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Max, you sort of started to touch on it, but matchups you guys are looking forward to and other ones that you think fantasy-wise should be avoided into this coming week. I'm going to start with one that is a definite start. It's an awkward, weird sort of Monday Night Football matchup, but Chicago and the Jets are squaring off in New York. I mean, if you look at just what the Brandon Marshall and I know Alshon Jeffrey didn't factor too much into it, but you got to remember he was hampered. But both of them were hampered, and they still put up monster points and really dominated the game last week. And they're going to go up against a Jets secondary that is god awful against the pass. They're ranked dead last right now in fantasy points wide receiver scoring against. So they're bound to break out. So that's one I think you should definitely look forward to. And even Martellus Bennett, tight end there. He's been all right to start the year. Just anyone in the receiving core really for for Chicago, I think is good to go with. Although I did look at them, and it really looks like Cutler's only targeted 3 guys.
I worry about that. I like their offense too, but it seems like it's just too many mouths to feed.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's kind of a sick way. It'd be kind of nice if one of them got hurt, and then like one of the receivers, and then it would spread the targets around.
Yeah. And another sneaky guy to keep an eye on, I know he hasn't put up points, and I mentioned him last week, Santonio Holmes. I just realized watching that game last week, he's in the return game, so even if he's not, you laugh, Seth, I know, you got but
no, I thought you were saying you just realized he was on the Chicago
No.
Bears. That happened to me. I was like, okay, Holmes is a Bear now.
He is, but just something to keep in mind, he's in the return game, so he has if he's not receiving, he has the potential to bust one open for a touchdown, taking kick returns and punt returns, something that he did mention last week he has been dying to do for the last several years, and because he was a top flight wide receiver on teams, they weren't giving him the opportunity because they didn't want him to get hurt. Now he's number 3 on the depth chart, so they're throwing him back there and saying, hey, go get yourself hurt and maybe score a touchdown. So there's that to keep in mind.
I'll go with a matchup to avoid. Maybe it's just me. I'm like the anti-homer. Like you're Mr. Philly lover, and I'm like the Pittsburgh hater. But Pittsburgh going against Carolina. Carolina's got a good defense, and the Steelers don't have good anything. So I mean, they shut down Megatron. What do you think they're going to do to Antonio Brown? And they're going to pretty much stop the run game. So I don't really like Le'Veon Bell either. So if you have other options, you're obviously going to play them. But if you have someone going against a really favorable matchup, you might want to consider switching them out. So.
Gotcha.
Carolina's good.
Yeah, that defense, even without Greg Hardy, that defense is still stellar. So, Mark, what do you got for this week?
I'll do like a combo matchup I like and matchup to avoid. Okay. And of course, I'm sick in this way, but I'm really looking forward to Dallas at St. Louis because I think it's a fun rock paper scissors matchup because Dallas has a horrible defense and St. Louis has no offense, and Dallas has all these like you would think they have an advantage on offense, but the Rams have a great defense. So it's one of those things where I like the Rams, but I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm genuinely curious about that.
That matchup in particular, something I was, if you want to break it down a little further than just Rams and Cowboys, is the Rams front 7 on defense. And
it's loaded.
It is. And, now that the Cowboys know and have looked at and realized that if you give DeMarco Murray the ball, he can do things, is he going to be productive against that front 7? And if he's not right away, are they going to abandon it and start having Romo swing the ball downfield? And if that's the case, I think they're in big trouble.
And you have to remember, from week 1 they got crunched by Minnesota, but Peterson didn't look so hot against them. They scored a lot of points, but it was through other means. It was a lot of circumstance with their QB situation.
Peterson didn't look too good, but Bobby Rainey put up, I think, 148 yards. And who's Bobby Rainey? So, I mean, if you have DeMarco Murray, who looked really good last week, I don't know if now that might be an adjustment. Maybe they saw something in film they wanted to key on, for Tampa Bay's wide receiver. I mean, Tampa Bay is just a train wreck, too. I feel so bad for that team. I really wanted them to be good after Shianaman. It's just
Shiano man, always a Shiano man.
Yeah, I don't know. That team's embarrassing.
Yeah, they're horrible.
I think they said that Tampa Bay was the only team to lose to back-to-back
backup
quarterbacks. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
At home.
It's embarrassing.
Total dumpster fire. Total dumpster fire. I'm gonna piggyback off Mark's idea with a matchup I like and a matchup I don't like. Ravens at Cleveland. I think that's going to be a shootout. I love that. I like that.
I wasn't expecting you to say that.
I think
it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think they're coming out. Flacco's going to be flinging the ball. It's going to be.
Fling it, dinging.
So I like the offenses in that matchup. Both of them.
You know what I hate about that game?
What?
Steve Smith Sr. Who does he think he is?
Yeah, Steve Smith.
Does his son play for the Ravens? Are we going to get confused somehow?
Yeah, bizarre. I've never seen senior on the jersey like that. And the matchup I don't like, you might be really high on the Bills, and they have looked really strong, but they're going up against San Diego, and I think San Diego is the truth. I think San Diego's awesome. So I would kind of avoid playing any. Well, I mean, you might be able to get away with offense, but don't play the Bills' defense. I wouldn't.
Gotcha.
The only thing is,
I'm
sorry,
going
I was
to.
going to chime in.
They put
Seattle
up 23
owners-
points.
All right, have
Last week,
fun.
I'm gonna, Max. Watch me.
It's interesting
I'll
because San
talk to you
Diego's
when you're 1 and 2.
weakness is pass defense, and that's really Buffalo's only like true weakness is the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. That's also interesting.
Yeah, definitely. One, I'm going to mention this, and it hurts to mention this, so this is me not being a homer, Seth. Another one potentially to avoid, and it's really weird,
Yeah, that's
is the Eagles' defense against Washington. And I say this because Philadelphia has a tremendous track record of just sucking the big one against backup quarterbacks. They are terrible when you throw some no-name quarterback at them, and they let them put up ridiculous points. I remember I'm not even going to be able to recall names, but like Miami 3 or 4 years ago, they had John Beck, I think was the guy's name.
John Beck.
Who exactly? He like started 2 games in the league, and he looked like Peyton Manning. I'm sure if they had that Austin Davis guy come up from St. Louis this year, he would go nuts on them. So Kirk Cousins is actually a legitimate backup that could start in this league and probably will after this year. And oh man, I'm afraid that one's going to be a shootout. So
they do play Austin Davis in 2 weeks.
Philly? Yeah, there we go. So maybe what's his name will be healthy by then. But Davis actually has not been doing. I know he doesn't have any touchdowns, but hasn't been doing that bad. So maybe he wins himself the job.
I'm going to propose a theory, and I agree with you to an extent. My theory is Philadelphia is the Indianapolis Colts of the NFC. If you want to argue that they're better than them because they beat them, I'm willing to accept that. But the reason why I feel that way is they're one of those contenders that like
they need to come back.
If everything clicks, they could probably win the Super Bowl, but they will.
Say that again.
Like here's the downside to that. You say that with the Colts too. Like you have a puncher's chance at the Super Bowl, but there are going to be some low lows.
Yeah, it's tough.
So basically, what I'm trying to say is against Washington, eventually you're going to have to pencil in a disappointing game. Why not this week?
Yeah.
That's what Indy does. They blow teams away, and then they lose to Jacksonville, stuff like that. Like the pieces are there for very good things, but it's just not high probability. Like you don't know what you're going to get. It's like scattershot. It's not a consistent contender, but on their best day, maybe something good will happen.
That's fair.
I'd be more concerned about the rush attack with Washington, considering you guys got shred apart by Ingram and Bradshaw.
I know. You know what? That was actually our strong point last year was being able to stuff the run up front. Now we have a couple injuries on the linebacking core. Kendricks, I'm not sure what's happening there. Yeah. And Casey Matthews is he awful. And he needs to be just cut to the curb. Terrible, disgusting. We got the bad end of that deal with that last name. But whatever. Maybe it's just because he doesn't have the long flowing hair. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, enough of that. I'm tired of talking bad about the Eagles.
Okay. Random question.
What?
Because I'm curious about this. How good do everyone think? Like, how good are the Bengals?
They're awesome. I think they're awesome.
They're okay. They're an above-average team.
Would you put them in the
you
top?
guys are crazy. You just don't like the fact that they're actually really good this year.
No,
they're
they're
really
not.
Good. I think they're top 5. They're top 5.
Okay, that was my question. I think they are too.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, I don't know about top 5, but they're right outside the top 5. They're sneaky good.
Who are the best?
No one thinks that they're good. No one is like willing to admit to the fact that they are good.
Yep.
I know what I'm setting myself up for this, but aside from the obvious ones, Seattle and Denver, like who are the serious Super Bowl contenders?
San Diego.
Yeah, I would put San Diego in that conversation.
Ooh,
I think San Diego is better than Cincy.
Yeah, I think so too.
I disagree.
That's 2 teams.
I picked San Diego to the Super Bowl. I like all this chatter. My sleeper pick will go.
The AFC seems more. You have the teams that I may have called it that the Patriots don't look like the Patriots this year. The AFC, they have the guys at the top that are going to be there, and the teams that are going to be. You have your Denver, you have San Diego, probably a wild card, and you have the Bengals. There we go. But then you go to the other side, the NFC. It's so wide open.
It is.
Let's see.
Seattle, and then who? I mean, Philly, you could probably say is the East just because it's a mess underneath them.
Yeah.
But that's going default because the rest of the division sucks. After Seattle though, who? Literally.
Carolina is emerging.
Sure, yeah.
It's an interesting team. Arizona, possibly?
Arizona, yeah, I would say Arizona.
But they don't have the quarterback play. They'll never win the NFC with Palmer in a road playoff game.
Chicago. I really like Chicago. Sure. I think a decent defense and high potency offense. San Francisco too. They're still in it.
I was just going to say San Fran too. If Kaepernick can keep the mistakes down.
I'm not impressed.
I think we're seeing a lot of
really
1-1.
Me last week.
I think we're seeing a lot of 1-1 teams, and we're like everyone's like panicking, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this team's 1-1. First week they blank out Green Bay, then the second week they lose to San Diego. Like people are kind of panicking a little bit. I think that it's still too early to decide who's a threat, but I think a lot of the old names from last year are pretty good still.
And Atlanta's back.
Atlanta is back. Yeah.
I know they had a bit of a clunker. They had a clunker against Cincy, but that's a place you don't go there and win often. Recently, at least. I mean, look at their track record over the last 2 or 3 years, and I think they only have one home loss, and not counting the playoff loss in Cincy. But they're a tough team to beat at home, and Atlanta was not really in that game, but. And
yeah,
you can call their week one game against New Orleans their Super Bowl, and they were coming out fired up to win that game. But
they're not going to win a road playoff game though, no chance.
No. But I mean, they're at least they have a good chance of making.
I think Carolina is the best matchup for Seattle because Seattle's biggest strength is their secondary, but the joke's on them because Carolina doesn't have any wide receivers.
Laugh at me for saying this, but I would love to see how Seattle matches up, which we'll get to see actually because they come out to Philly, how Seattle matches up against Chip Kelly's offense.
A road game?
Not a road game. I mean, they're going to be in Philly, so we'll get to see.
I'm saying it's a road game for them.
Oh, yeah. It'll still be interesting.
It is crazy. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just talking about Cincy again. I think they blow out Tennessee this week. I'm high on Cincy. I think they're really
I was too, but now that we started talking about it, I think they lay an egg and lose.
I don't know.
That's what Cincy does. They lay an egg. That's what they do.
Not as good either.
The year of Cincy.
It's so fun. I was just thinking back to like last year, we had like the greatest defense ever versus the greatest offense ever in the Super Bowl. Like, what could we possibly get this year that's going to be that good? It's going to be like two teams no one cares about. Like, there's like zero hype that you can make up for this year.
We'll see.
I hope it's Arizona versus Cincinnati, the Carson Palmer Bowl.
Terrible. All right, let's jump to bold predictions. I'm still working on mine, so who wants to
I got one ready for this.
Go for it. You had
Eli Manning is going to be a top 5 quarterback with 25 points this week. Eli Manning, you heard it here.
Wow.
That's bold.
That is bold.
Not smart, but it's bold.
I know something.
All right. Who's up?
All right, Brian Quick, over 100 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
Who?
There, exactly. Don't even try to pick him up. Don't even waste your time.
I'm picking up Eli Manning and starting him.
I'd say my bold prediction is that Tampa Bay leads Atlanta at the half of their game.
Come on. We need more than that.
What, the third quarter?
Come on.
I still don't think they win.
Tell us they lose by like 3.
No, yeah, sure. They lose by no more than a touchdown.
Ah.
It's kind of weird.
It's kind of bold.
I don't know.
Vikings march into New Orleans and beat the Saints. Saints start 0-3.
That's bold. I think you're crazy.
The Aints. The Aints are back.
Oh man, I gotta go. Let's say that Arian Foster goes into. No, that's not even bold because it's the Giants. You can't make a bold prediction against the Giants. It just wouldn't be bold.
That's that bold prediction is that Eli Manning does well.
Top 5 quarterback. You heard it here.
I can't wait.
Damn, I don't know.
Does someone?
This is what happens when you do the show off the cuff.
Wait. Seth, does someone have Eli in our league?
I did, but I cut him because he's terrible.
If you really believe in your pick him up and start him.
Fine. I'll show it. How am I gonna? I'm not bold enough like you to sit somebody who just got me 25 points last week.
That's bold.
All right, I got one. Tom Brady, goose eggs, and touchdowns against the Raiders.
Ooh. That's
Goose
good.
eggs, touchdowns against the Raiders.
That's bold.
At home?
Bold.
At home.
That's
Goose
bold.
Against the West Coast team.
Touchdowns
You guys are
against the
crazy.
Raiders. I don't think they lose the game. But I don't think Tom Brady throws a touchdown.
So it's all defense and running.
Yes. They have not impressed me at all. The Patriots
That's wild.
they're struggling right now.
Yeah.
It's a struggle in New England.
30-7 win last week.
It's
It was a
They don't look like
fluky
the
30-7.
it really was. It was all defense. I mean, they had the punt / kick return for a touchdown. They had a bunch of interceptions and sacks, and it just the defense gave them that game. So I think this week it hopefully will be the same thing because I'm starting them. But I don't think Brady's going to factor into it too much.
Fair enough.
Cool.
All
That's
right.
it. That's week 3 in the books.
All right.
See you guys next week. And until then, enjoy fantasy and share your comments and share this around. And thanks for watching.